Oh.
Where's she messing with
Oh.
us?
Where is she?
Oh.
Oh, recruiting?
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all and thank you all for coming. We're going to get started, so I'll call our regular meeting of the Governing Board to order. And if you will all join me in a moment of silence. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let the record show that we have 4 board members present. Mr. Samaniego could not be with us this evening. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Mrs. Wilson, members of the board, good evening. Not at this time.
Okay, I'll need a motion to approve first, and then we'll continue with 3A and 3B. So, Mr. Quintana?
Mrs. Wilson, members of the board, it is my pleasure this evening to, along with the governing board, recognize Mr. John Laveau and 5th grade students from Glendale Landmark School who tied for 2nd place in the 1st annual Northern Arizona Elementary School Math Championships for 3rd through 6th grade students. And we'll move on to the state competition in Tucson, which will take place in May.
Excellent.
And Mr. Laveau and I believe most of the students are here this evening. And if you will join me in going down to the floor so we can recognize them individually. Which one's on top? Jamie or Marianne, these apples are for them, so if one of you will help me with those. Okay, and I'll get them. If Christian Perry is here, can we have Christian come up so we can recognize you and congratulate you? Congratulations, Christian. Yes.
Congratulations. There you go. Good job.
Congratulations. Good job. Francisco Ortega. Is Francisco here?
Congratulations. No?
Congratulations, Francisco. Is Ahmed Mohammed here? Ahmed? Congratulations. Maybe we'll give him this first. Let's go with this.
Go with English.
Congratulations. Josefina Lima. Is Josefina here?
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Good job. Esteban Jacobo. Congratulations, Esteban. Great job. Liz helped me out with pronunciation, little tips on most of these, but did not on this one. So, is it Hute? Alexandria Hute? Hutt. I'm sorry, Alexandria Hutt. Sorry, Alexandria. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Great job. Naomi Cowan. Is Naomi here? Congratulations, Naomi. Great job.
Good job. Congratulations. You made it.
Over this, Naomi?
Is she throwing those apples? Yeah.
I hope I get this one right. Leah Sebia? Did I get that? Was that close? Leah?
Oh, you got one of those.
Congratulations, Leah. Great job. There we go.
Congratulations.
Right here.
Go that one. Congratulations.
We also want to recognize the two adult teachers here who are responsible for the hard work here and that they do with the students. Lisa Robinson. Congratulations, Lisa. Thank you for all your work with the students.
More apples.
Right. And John Laveau. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Appreciate all the work.
Thank you. It's heavier than it looks.
Yeah, they're heavy.
I know that Ms. Schmitz is going to make a few comments, but we are so proud of you. And I have asked Ms. Powell to put the date of the competition in May when you will be competing in Tucson on my calendar, and I plan to be there to cheer you on.
So I just want to tell you a little bit about the competition. We just got a random email about inviting anyone to this competition. And so Mr. Laveau has been working with Ms. Robinson's kids in RTI all year. And this is the enrichment group that we decided to enrich. And I said, you've been working with these kids all year. What do you think, Mr. Laveau? And he's like, let's give it a try. It's something we've never done before. It was out of the county, but we decided, why not? Put our kids up to the test. So they competed against kids from the basis charter schools, homeschool kids, a lot of the northern schools, and like they said, there was 2 teams, so you can only have 4 on a team. So the first team was Leah, Naomi, and Christian Ahmed, and they finished second, which there was a tie for second, so there's a first place tie and a tie for second. Our other team of Alexandria, Josefina, Francisco, and Sabin, they finished third. Even though they don't get to go because of the tie for second, they actually finished third. So our kids did very well in competing with the highest academic schools out there, so we're very proud of them. And then I just want to recognize, we got a medal in the mail just yesterday from the event. And Leah, will you step forward? Step forward. Leah actually had the top score of any fifth grader in the competition. So she won the tournament, and Mr. LeVeaux has your medal. And a little known fact about Leah is she actually just started at Landmark and arrived in the United States last year as a fourth grader. She is a refugee from Cuba and has the top fifth grade math score in the competition. So congratulations, Leah.
All right, at this time, we're still at item 3. However, we're going to go ahead with item 3D, the teacher art display.
Yes, Mrs. Wilson, members of the governing board, this evening we have the district's lead art teacher, Miss Dawn Denault from Horizon School, and she is here to introduce and talk to you a little bit about the art display that you see before you. Mrs. Denault.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Quintana, Executive Council, principals, and Glendale members. My name is Dawn Denault. I am the district lead art teacher and the art teacher at Horizon, and I'm honored to present to you tonight this month's art display, which is created by the art teachers of our district. We have arts work done by teachers from Sign, IMES, Horizon, Desert Garden, Bicentennial South, and American. The reason for this display is twofold. One is to show you that we do what we teach. So it's very close to our hearts and dear to us that all children can create. Also, every month we pick our favorite projects to display here in the boardroom. And over the month of March, we are busy collecting our artwork, our very best works of art for the district art show. This year's art show will be held on April 22nd. It's from 4:30 to 6 p.m. at Landmark in their gymnasium. We hope you will all attend to see the amazing creative work that our children have created this year. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item 3A, school spotlight. Mr. Quintana?
Mrs. Wilson, members of the governing board, before we try to see if we can connect with or hear Dr. Lewis, who's in North Carolina, I want to just share a little bit about why we have moved the school reports to this special recognition spotlight section of the agenda. Over the last several weeks, we have been talking about, as a leadership team, how important it is that we communicate in simple, plain English terms so that the general public and those individuals that we share information with understand what we're doing and can be better informed about some of the work that we're doing here in the school district. So this is our first attempt to move this area or these reports into this school spotlight area, encouraging our principals and others who participate in the reports to engage in more of a conversation with the governing board opposed to that more of a formal report. So we'll see how it works, and if we don't get what we're looking for, moving back to the report section. So I'll turn things over to Dr. Lewis as she introduces our two principals, our first principal and then our second principal. Dr. Lewis.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. It's a delight to be here with you tonight in this way. We are pleased to share with you the 4-year approach that Landmark has been using and the process in which they are unveiling and implementation of the Common Core. We also are going to hear from Discovery tonight about their approach to, and this is lingo, so hang on, deconstructing the standard. And all that means is how we break apart what it is we want our kids to know and how our teachers talk about building the building blocks for our kids to know what they need to know. And with that, I will introduce our, well, I'm not sure who's first. Can you tell me?
Landmark.
And here's Gina.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Lewis.
Good evening, Governing Board President and Governing Board members and Cabinet. I'm just going to do a quick spotlight on Landmark. It's very informal. I didn't bring any notes. It's just kind of what we've been doing for the past 4 years. I hope. So really, since I have been at Landmark, we're working on a progression of learning for our teachers and our school on a progression of development. So for me to just year. It hasn't been a one-year ordeal for me. It's been 3 years with a 4th year in view. So as I go through on the next few slides, I'm going to talk about what we've done for academics, our culture climate, our professional learning communities, meeting our learners, parent involvement, and community partnership, and how I've developed them over the 4 years. And I'm not in the 4th year yet, but I'm looking forward to it next year. So I've already been visioning towards that, and that's why it's included in here. So year 3. So when I started there in the first year, everybody knows it was a turnaround school. We had a lot of new teachers. We just focused on solid first instruction, and we've layered these. Year 2 is really about differentiation for our teachers, teaching them how to do skill-guided reading groups, what a really true comprehensive math and reading block look like. One of the other things we did last year was implement a common curriculum across our K-3. So when you walk from classroom to classroom, you will see the curriculum being used in classrooms. Year 3 is this year. We've implemented a common curriculum across 4th through 8th grade. So my whole school has the same things being taught in the same classrooms in the same grade level. Does it look exactly the same? No, because every teacher is different, but the content is the same information. So it doesn't matter what room you're in 2nd grade, they're all learning the same stuff at the same time, which is really great to, when you need to collaborate as teams, they're on the same page. We've took on the initiative of close reading and Socratic seminars. And that is very important for the Common Core. That's one of the standards they always talk about is how do you close read and how do you have kids talking about it, and that's the Socratic seminar piece of it. The other piece is the math side. We've really worked on conceptual understanding of all the mathematics from kindergarten to 8th grade, as well as problem solving in that mathematics component. And as we look at next year, looking at our curriculum demands more for writing in the Common Core, and our students do not have that strength. So next year we really have to focus on developing writing so that they can develop their students in writing. Math, we pretty much have it solid. So we're really going to look at doing some science and technology integration on our math days that we kind of set aside at Landmark to really enhance that. We feel like with AZ Merit coming, our kids need a lot more skills than what they've ever needed in the past. So we're going to embed that into our professional development next year. Culture and climate. It's just the tone and the feel of the campus. Year 1 was just foundations. Year 2, I always laugh at my teachers. I thought I was doing a good job, and I thought we had pretty good culture and climate. And it was partway through the year they came to me and they go, "We have a real culture issue, Gina." And I'm like, "Oh, we do, huh?" But they came up with the idea of this culture of achievement. It's based around a book by Doug Fisher of 5 pillars you need in place to have an effective school, and it all revolves around creating a culture of achievement. So it is really run by the teachers. It's teacher-driven in every aspect. They lead the meetings, I just attend and provide input as I'm a teacher. So it's really a powerful thing to know that you have enough shared leadership that you can let go and trust your staff to do it. But they went back, and one of the first chapters is on having core values, mission, and vision, and they're like, "We don't have it." And I go, "You're right," because when I took what was there, but we didn't have enough common shared experiences to write one. So last summer, we wrote that at the end of the year to move us forward to this year. Last summer, we got to go to the Masonic Temple training. I took a K-5 team. It's a free training, and their whole philosophy is our kids come with deficits, and we have to build assets in them to build them up to be successful in life. And it's funny, I took the asset thing and said, I'm barely a functioning adult, as our children. So we kind of laughed about that as a team, and I took 8 people. It's actually a free training. They're supposed to be coming back this June. So I'm looking at sending a 5th through 8th grade team to expand that on my campus. So we're all looking at what strengths we can build in our kid and not what their problem is what do we need to build in them to be successful. So that's our plan. And then we are working on a partnership with the Arizona Business Education Coalition. I'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to our partnerships. But we're looking at that for motivating our 8th graders. My 7th graders are my hardest group of kids I have on my campus right now. So we're trying to find some motivation and some real meaning to the Common Core. And so we're starting to explore a partnership with that. Professional learning communities. I know this has been a district focus since I've been here. And it's kind of about when teachers are ready for what they need, and some people say we can do it all at once. I'm a person that we scaffold them and scaffold them and scaffold them. We put one system in place and the next. This year, there's 4 questions they ask in the PLC process, and we're really only on question 2. If I take an honest look at our campus, the majority of my staff is at number 2. We're creating common formative assessments to identify what they have learned, and we can say we now have those built, and next year our goal is really to figure out how to respond best to those. We talk about the data right now, but we're not 100% effective at how we respond and what we do when we already know it. So my 1st grade team and my 5th grade team are the strongest in doing the PLCs and the RTI time, and that's why John Laveau was brought in to do the enrichment piece. What do you do when they already know it? They're like, we don't know. We have so many kids that don't know it. What do we do with these 10 kids that really know it? We can't make a class of just 10 kids and put 70 in the lows. So that's where they're like, John, can we steal you for our RTI? And that is part of the AA's job, is to do RTI, and the 5th grade team felt that he could enrich them better than anybody else having the middle school experience, so he's doing the enrichment piece versus the remediation piece. And then we also have it at 1st grade going very strong. Those teams are my strongest too. They're already there, but the majority of my staff isn't. So as I look at this is what the whole staff would need to move to the next level. Meeting the needs of diverse learners. You can see that very top one is crossed out. That is something we did drop. Most of these we have not dropped. We were just layering and layering and layering. My first year there, we used our instructional assistants in the classroom, and people had 30 minutes of assistant time in their classroom, and they were supposed to be having them work with groups of kids and doing things. We did not find that effective at all. So my 2nd year there, we pulled them out and we put them in what we called the WIN room, and I modeled it after Jack's when I was there. They had a literacy lab, and we called it our WIN room because it's what I need. And that's what WIN stands for. So they're getting what they need. It's not a punishment, it's not remediation, it's just what you need at this time, and kids come in and kids exit from going in and out of there. So it's a very flexible grouping, and we regroup kids every quarter for that room. This year, we had so much success last year with our WIN room. We were able to take one assistant out and make it a math WIN room as well as a reading WIN room. So we now have both going on. My 2nd year, we had so many kids in deficit in reading, like we could only do reading and couldn't get all the kids through. So after 1 year of feeling like we provided enough intervention, we are down to having both going on at the same time, which has been wonderful. And the math focus really to start the year was, as sad as it was really to take 5th and 6th graders that didn't learn to multiply and teach them how to multiply, and go back over that conceptual understanding and that fluency with it, because if they don't have that, they fail at the higher levels. So that's really where we started the math focus, and now we're working with our lower grade kids since we've remediated at the top. And then you can see the RTI process that we talked about in PLCs will look there. Expand the enrichment for such things as a math league. It was a randomness, and I thought I was putting the 5th graders up against the 6th graders, but I guess every grade level has a level of expertise, and you compete kind of within your own grade level, even though you're in this 3 through 6 range. So we were talking about next year putting more kids in and letting them have this opportunity to compete at this highest level. And I mean, these kids came back and they were like, Ms. Schmitz, that was the hardest thing ever. Never make us do that again. Those were like high school problems. That was algebra. We never learned that. And I go, it's okay. It was a challenge. You know, they didn't know how they placed. The internet was down and up there, and it was a mess of figuring out the scores. But once they figured it out, they were able to do it. It was a huge success. And the amazing thing was, it was the problem solving that our kids wanted on. We lost on the fluency piece, and everyone says, oh, the fluency, our kids aren't fluent, they're not fast at doing it, but they've learned the skills to problem solve, and that's what helped our team win is it's 4 kids sitting there working out these problems, and they had the best results with problem solving. So I said that's a huge compliment to not just knowing the math and be able to scribble it out, but to be able to think through it. So we're excited about entering more kids. Parent involvement. The first layer is the basic site things. Year 2, I got to open a family resource room through the First Things First grant. I've added win nights where K3 does it 3 times a year, and it's really to share out the DIBELS data, and we have grade level expectations of what their student needs to know by the end of the year in K3. And it's the nights that we bring every parent in and say, this is where your child's at, and it's not at parent-teacher conferences, so they see the whole grade levels data, and then they can see on the chart like their kid's number and where they compete with the rest of the kids and what goals they need to set for their kids. So if you're high, you're just setting a goal to work on comprehension, or if you're very low, we're setting some foundational skills of where you should be. But it's really a conference about where your child's data is, not their behavior in their classroom, but if we give them these assessments that we have to progress and monitor for universal screening, this is where your child falls. I got our PTA back up and going, and I have the vertical alignment of what should be done in K1, 2, 3 that we've worked on last year and the year before a little bit. We are going to finish those K8s by the end of the school year, so that every parent that walks through the door is, if you come to Landmark by the end of the year, this would be what your kid should know and be able to do. So it's a little bit more articulated, and that's the accountability back to the teacher is, am I getting those there? And they're based off of the Common Core standards that we use to make those. Community partnerships. These I have expanded over the years, and each grant year changes to what grants I'm able to get and go out for. The big one I'm working on right now, I actually just started one with the Women's Club of Glendale that we're working on a program for teaching our kids to vote and their parents to vote. But I'm also working with the ABEC, the Arizona Business Education Coalition, and they are working to bring 3 or 4 companies, large companies, that would work every Wednesday morning with our 8th graders on a career path for either a semester or a year for 2 hours every day, and they would be exposed to every skill needed for that career and job, and they would have a couple to select from, and it will be a year-long program to say, this is what you do in the classroom, and this is how it applies to the real world. This is what you do in the classroom, this is how it applies to the real world. They're looking at like Thunderbird Hospital, because there's so many different aspects that go into running a hospital of all those components. We talked about a just not a necessarily medical career one, of just the trades careers. I'm working with GCC. They have actually one of the best trade career programs right up here. Of, you know, if they want to be a diesel engineer, mechanic, and some of the different things of what are all the different pieces if I just want to do this. But you can be a basic guy that changes oil, or you can be the engineer that reads the computers at the top end. And what is the difference? Like, I want to work on cars, but I don't have to just be the oil changer. Of what are all the layers to some of those? So we have 4 or 5 ideas we're floating around to find those partners to start next year with. And then we're just keeping applying for grants so we can get extra funding for our school. And then kind of the way we do business, what has been consistent over the 4 years is high expectations for all. Our students can learn, our teachers can learn. We're reaching for the top notch at all times. We continuously analyze data. We have accountability for implementation of the professional development. Any PD we do on site, we follow it up with classroom expect it to be implemented. We provide coaching on it till teachers get there to the level, and just continuous administration so that teachers feel supported and they can reach those levels of success with their students. And that's the end.
You have accomplished a lot in the 3 years, you know, so nice job and congratulations. And it's I would enjoy coming by and getting another tour. I know earlier this year, but I would like another one too. So
You're welcome anytime.
Mrs. Wilson, members of the board, and I think Gina would acknowledge the fact that it was hard for her to squeeze all of the great things that are going in, that are taking place at Landmark into 8 to 10 minutes. So this is just kind of a quick synopsis.
Madam President, if I may. This on first. Ms. Smith, in regard to the culture and climate, I just want to commend you for recognizing your staff when you felt that the culture and climate was perfect. Just when you thought it was right, your staff came and addressed you, and you have an open door policy that allows them to just come freely and do that. you were receptive to them, saying, hey, listen, we have a problem.
Yeah.
And you recognized it, and you moved with them, and the culture's better, and so I want to commend you and your staff, but you for allowing them to feel free and comfortable to come to you and say, hey, there's a problem, you may not know of it, but we have one, and so I just want to compliment you on
Well,
that.
I kind of looked at him and go, I can't do any more right now. You know, the plate is overflowing, but if you guys see the need, I said, I support it 100%. You guys just have to lead the path. I said, I am 100% behind you. You have set the vision, and they had a book before they came to me and said, this is what we want to do. We think this will help us. And I go, all right, I just got to buy the books for you. I can buy the books for you. And they took off, and we're still working on the third chapter is Do No Harm. And it's really the way we talk to kids. It kind of goes with that asset training I was talking about at the Masonic Temple. We're not 100%, not every teacher is using the appropriate language with kids that's going to move them forward. We can say the same thing in different ways and move a kid either up or down, and we are working on moving always those kids up instead of putting them down. And so that's the piece we're really focusing on this year, is that do no harm, because we can harm a kid just by our words.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see how they do in Tucson.
I'm excited too.
All right. Well,
Thank you.
thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Gina.
All right, we're at our special recognition, item 3B.
Yes, Mrs. Wilson, members of the board, at this time, Dr. Lewis will introduce our next school and principal.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Norma Howergy has been working hard and furious at her school to help teachers understand the intense discussions that they need to have as a team to understand how to break apart the standard and help kids really understand all the pieces to build up to those standards. So Mrs. Howergy will begin and sharing with her staff as here tonight.
Good evening, Madam President, governing board members, and executive team, and all community members. Thank you for inviting us, and we're very excited to be here. I have Andrea here. She's my new assistant principal, so if you haven't met her, she's fabulous. I kind of did a little focus on using data, student data at Discovery, and kind of where we are this year. So I'm going to just briefly go over that, but I think it's best to hear from the people that actually do the work. So we did invite some teachers in today. Things that I really believe in firmly as a principal is just the professional learning communities process. It is a kind of like a reform model for school improvement. And I think it does. I got asked when I first got to Discovery by a parent, this is a high-performing school. What are you going to do to fix this school? Because they really thought that there was really nothing to do. And I said, well, I did look at the data, and the data tells us a little bit, but there's other things that give us information about the school as well. But I do think that fundamentally there are some basic things that you can look at to look at a school and decide, okay, what can I focus on? And for me as a principal, it is about professional learning communities, and specifically these 4 critical questions. And so we put this little bubble in the middle here because if we focus on these 4 student achievement, and while I am working on lots of other things, including school culture and climate, this is a component that's really important. And so I said, we're going to work on all of these. And then I was like, oh, no, we're not going to work on all of these. That's probably not going to be very successful. So we decided to narrow it down and just focus on really number 1, but we are doing a little bit in number 2. And number 1 is, what do we want the students to know and be able to do? What do they need to know? And that is that idea of deconstructing the standards, taking the Common Core standard, which is gigantic, and breaking it apart and saying, what are those target skills that the students need? And the reason it's so important, because we have documents that show us the already deconstructed standards, but to me as a principal, the reason it's so important for teachers to do the work, they talk about it. We don't give them the answer. If they don't know what something means, I think one of the standards was trace and analyze. And the teachers were like, what does trace mean? Well, they've been teaching this standard, but they didn't know what the word trace meant in this standard. So we looked up the word trace, and we looked at all the meanings, and we said, what does this mean? And although it takes a lot of time, I think there's a lot of value. It's really about empowering me as a teacher to know what I'm actually teaching and really feel confident when I walk into that classroom that I'm going to know what to do. And so that's what deconstruction about. That's question one. Am I sure as a teacher and as a team that I know and we know what I have to teach and what that looks like? The second question is, how will we know when they've learned it? We're delving into at a snail-paced approach to creating common formative assessments. And then, yes, the next two questions, what do you do with that? And so that's kind of where we are at Discovery on the academic side. And like I said, we're working on a lot of things. But to me, as a principal, fundamentally, it's these 4 critical questions. And they're really understanding and empowering, confident in the content. So hopefully, we don't get rid of Common Core, because that would take us a couple steps backward. But next, I have Andrea.
Good evening, President Wilson, governing board members, and executive team. My name is Andrea Ariano. I am the assistant principal at Discovery School. I'm going to take a brief moment to describe why we chose our third grade team members, which consist of Ms. Manis, Ms. Bender, and Ms. Tryon. First of all, they meet collaboratively on a consistent basis to talk about student data to drive their instruction. And we looked at the data from Illuminate, from the mid-year checkpoint. And if we look at the screen, it shows that our third graders in math scored 6% above district average, and in reading as well, it was 7%.
Feedback from the public on their suggestions.
Then do you have to submit that feedback?
The board would have to hear that feedback.
I mean, do you have to submit it to the state?
No, I think what I read was that what did change is that the board members actually have to sign a document showing what the cuts look like.
Well, that's an additional requirement, which basically shows that we have to identify the percentages.
It was presented.
Okay.
Madam President, are we voting on an item today?
Actually, we are at item 7F, so in the action items, yeah, but we had a suggestion there, so we might alter that.
Yeah, while I appreciate you apologizing for not bringing it to us, I feel that's a little unprecedented. I'd like to have seen more about it, and I'd like to have a little more heads up on it. If we're voting on something today, I don't even have any information out here in front of me, so.
Well, there was some, we were still waiting for, or I was, with what was coming down from the state, that was still up in the air there, so. But I think what Ms. Smith is saying is that we need to, do we table this then, and?
We don't have to do anything. No action.
It left the option, it left it open for you to vote if you chose
Possible
to,
action.
but it was more the discussion.
All right, so we'll discuss the executive session when we get to 8A. Okay. All right, so we'll just move on then. We're at 8 future meetings and events, and item 8A at this time. I guess we want to take a look at our next scheduled meeting, which is the 26th.
Mrs. Wilson, members of the board, again, we have a tentative special meeting scheduled for the 26th if needed. And again, if the governing board would like to have an executive session on that evening to discuss and provide guidance to the administration regarding the budget and negotiations, we're certainly open to that.
Would this be the only item on the agenda?
I don't believe Ms. Powell is sharing with me that we only have one other item at this time that would possibly be on that evening, but we could make an effort to limit it to minimal items so that we could get in, do